Hello everyone, welcome to the Dill Pickle Movie Network and my review for episodes 3 and 4 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, I wasn't here last week to do a review because I was moving. I'm still in the process of moving and moving everything in, so I'm at the old studio today. But I did want to give my thoughts on that episode before I transition into the thoughts on the new episode that premiered today on Disney+. Episode 3 was, I think, a high point for this series. I think it delivered on everything we were waiting and expecting this series to be. I'm actually, quite frankly, a little surprised that we got where we got in episode 3 so quickly, but I think it sets up for an interesting rest of the way. My only worry was that it would back itself into a corner where we've already kind of hit the peak and there's going to be a little bit of a lull afterward, and unfortunately, I was a little bit right. I think episode 4 was a bit of a lull. I'm going to get into it with spoilers because I really don't know how to talk about these episodes without talking about the big spoilers, especially in episode 3, so I'm sorry, I don't have anything else to add that isn't spoiler prone, so just be warned. And now we're getting into spoilers, and I think it was really cool to see Hayden Christensen back in the Darth Vader armor. He only did one scene as Darth Vader in Revenge of the Sith, so it's great to see him, even if we're not seeing his face the entire time, or barely any of the time, we're not hearing his voice. It's James Earl Jones, who's doing a great job. I think it's great to see that physicality, because Hayden Christensen, very tall, he has the physicality down, and I do think it'll be nice to see. Maybe they will do a few more flashbacks. We saw some little moments where Obi-Wan was envisioning Anakin. I hope we get to see a little bit more of Hayden as Hayden, but I do think in the Darth Vader suit, he's really bringing the physicality, and those scenes where he's, walking through the village, force choking people as he goes to try to draw out Obi-Wan from the shadows. I think those moments were just so strong, and then especially in the big climactic fight between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan, I just love the physicality there, and I think that's one of the strengths, is just this characterization of Darth Vader. It feels very reminiscent to A New Hope in the way he speaks, in some of the mannerisms, but it does feel a little bit fresher and a little bit livelier because Hayden Christensen is in the suit making everything happen. As for the episode, I think it started with this really great moment between Obi-Wan and Leia. These scenes are so bittersweet because you love seeing these characters connect, but all the raw emotional backstory that follows them, and it is kind of sad to see, but it is very sweet and endearing as well. I love the comparisons that they continue to make with Leia and Padme. I think both actors did a great job in conveying those scenes, and then we get a really cool Stormtrooper moment. I love this shot of the Stormtrooper basically getting zapped in half, almost Darth Maul-esque from the laser, and then we get to the big climactic fight where Darth Vader basically hunts down Obi-Wan Kenobi, finds him, and the two square off. I was just surprised it happened so early because I thought this would be kind of what we got at the very end of the whole series, but it did provide some really, really great action moments. I mean, I love the moment where Darth Vader basically ignites all this like gasoline and makes it fire from just sticking his lightsaber in the lighter fluid. I think it was just such an amazing, shocking moment, and then dragging Obi-Wan through the fire. It's very gritty, it's very dark, and that's kind of where I've been waiting for this series to really dive into, because this is a dark story. This is a story about trauma and recovering from grief, and I think this scene really, really showed that. Now, after that scene, of course, I was worried, like, where do we go from here? It fell into a bit of a trap, and I think the trap is that, they have some exciting stuff planned for the finale, they have some really exciting stuff they just left off on, and now they kind of have to have this middle bridge gap, and I almost kind of wish they stayed more in the lane of Obi-Wan, recovering from this really, really brutal fight. We saw all the scarring on the back from the burns. I mean, it was a very, very catastrophic fight. I mean, it really hurt Obi-Wan and probably weakened him a lot. I mean, they put him in the same tank we've seen now Luke and Anakin in, and then we get a few moments where Obi-Wan is having these really bad flashbacks to that fight and just, reliving that trauma. And then right away, it's back to let's rescue Leia, and I wanted a little bit more of those character moments, the reflection and the growth that Obi-Wan must overcome. I really love those moments, and I felt like they focused on it for a few minutes, and then it was right into the next mission, and I wish they had spent more time just kind of living with Obi-Wan and maybe taking a breath, because we are now between the first half and second half of the season. This is kind of the middle episode to kind of, take that breath and, maybe flesh out some of the character moments, but instead they were immediately wanting to get right back into the action, into rescuing Leia, which, by the way, we've already seen in episode 2 a whole episode about rescuing Leia. So it's like almost like we're starting back at square one, to the point where I just don't know if this was a progression of the story, but it felt more of a reset. I don't really have much else to say because the actual mission to save Leia was, it was fine. It was entertaining. There were some great moments, especially toward the end with a lot of the action. The moment where Darth Vader is storming through, angry about Obi-Wan escaping again. Like, all those moments are good, but I just feel where the story is headed, I almost wish that this episode was more focused on the recovery and Obi-Wan trying to, like, process what just happened rather than just jumping into the next thing, which is a rescue mission for the same character that we just had a rescue mission for in episode 2. I didn't hate episode 4, but I do think episode 4 was probably the weak point of the series so far. I could be wrong. Of course, when the series wraps, I'm going to have probably a different thought on this whole overall episode arc, but I do think right now, where we are in the story, it just feels like a little bit of a setback compared to where we were in episode 3, where it ended on this big high, this really traumatic, emotional fight. I just wish there was more of that character building in episode 4 rather than let's just do another mission to rescue that character. And I will just say one last thing. I think Moses Ingram is doing a fantastic job. People are allowed to have criticisms of performances. I have criticisms of performances all the time. But sometimes there's a very specific type of critique that you kind of see mirrored and patterned on the internet that just seem to be focusing, I think, on the wrong reasons for not liking a performance. I'm really impressed with the work she's been doing. It's clear that she has a very strict objective and mission that she's trying to accomplish and all the obstacles in her way. I think she's navigating that well. I'm excited to see where this character goes because I think there is a potential to have this character have some sort of redemption arc because, as alluded to in this first episode, she may have been one of those young Padawans in the Jedi Temple during Order 66, and I'm wondering if maybe there's going to be some sort of redemption arc, or if her big moment is going to be a square off against Obi-Wan Kenobi. Maybe this whole series has been building to the fight between those two characters rather than Obi-Wan and Vader, and you know what? I'd like to see it, because I think she's a great villain, and I can't wait to see where they go with it, and I do think if you don't like certain aspects of the performance and you can actually articulate why, and not make it any other reason than the performance itself, then I think that's valid. But if you are going to attack someone for just the color of their skin or just the fact that they booked a role on a show because they were talented enough in their audition and someone saw something in them and gave them the shot for the role, and the series hasn't even wrapped yet, I just think that's a little bit of an unfair assessment. I hope people are a little fairer. I think true Star Wars fans are accepting of all, even if the performances don't always work. I mean, I'm a prequel kid. I grew up with the prequels, and I can acknowledge some of those performances aren't great, but I still love them. I still respect the actors because I know what it's like to put so many hours into work, into art. You know, I perform in theater. I've done some film stuff, done some TV stuff, and I know the hours and the toll it takes on a performer, on a director, on a writer, on a crew person, just to get everything, made. And I think sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget that these are people. These are their jobs. This is what they come to work to do. And whether or not they perform as well as some of the other people around them. I mean, you're competing with Ewan McGregor. Mostly everyone is going to have a high bar to try to match. But I really do think, we have to remember as Star Wars fans that these are people first and foremost. They're there to entertain us. And yes, we can be critical of certain aspects of their performances, but to attack the human being playing the character, it just doesn't sit right with me. And I hope more actual Star Wars fans speak up for this to show the people who claim they're Star Wars fans but aren't really showing it and practicing it, to show them what values we as Star Wars fans and this fandom should hold accountable. So that's my review of episodes 3 and 4, and then getting into a little bit of a more serious conversation, but I do think it's important to address, and I am excited to see how these next 2 episodes roll out. Because I was moving last week, I couldn't do an episode 3 review, so I jumbled it up with this one, but next week I will be doing an episode 5 review, and then after that I will be doing an episode 6 review. It's weird to say episodes, because, episode 5 and 6 is Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi to me, but episode 5 and 6 of Kenobi, of Obi-Wan Kenobi, I'll be doing reviews for in the next few weeks. If you want to check out my review for episode 1 of Miss Marvel, you can check out my podcast, Marvelous Movie Mondays, coming out this Monday, where I and my co-host Kelsey Kilpatrick will be doing a spoiler review of that show that just dropped. And on Friday or Saturday, depending on when I see the movie, I will be giving a review of Jurassic World Dominion. I've heard some things, but I'm going to try to let all the criticisms block out of my brain when I go to see the movie. I'm going to go in with a fair mind and an open mind, but we'll see how it goes, and I'm excited to talk about that as well. Thank you so much for watching. May the Force be with you. I'll see you next time.